And now, a special surprise guest all the way from Tamarack, Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, someone who raised three very, very hard to handle children. So did you start Facebook? Okay, let me just hit refresh. I'm going to refresh again. I'm not getting it. No, I'm not getting it, you guys. No. I see me there. If a guest doesn't ever show up, I'm just going to read my Facebook feed. I'm going to close the browser and try again. Margie, did you have any time to get word out to your friends? Guys, I am not getting it. Oh, wait. There's another way to do this. Ready for the music? All right, hang on. Don't start yet. Yeah, I'm not getting this, Rob, so I'm going to hand this over to you. Wait. There I am. Good. We're good to go. Okay. Yeah. Hit the music. Welcome. It's 8 o'clock on Thursday night, and that can only mean one thing. It's time for the 37th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. My name is Greg Rapport. I am the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We're a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that provides one-to-one mentors to youth who are in need. This program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G and the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Doc G is on the big board tonight along with Robin. We don't spend enough time talking about some of the other great programming that happens right here every week at Hamilton Radio. A lot of the people that I talk to about the Age Out Angels Radio Hour sort of view this as a kind of a one-off type of podcast. And it's so much more than that. This radio station has been around for about 20 years. And it's based on a kind of a forward-thinking proposition that the potential of internet radio to reach an international audience in real time is dramatically more pervasive compared to traditional radio. But just like traditional radio, there is a regular lineup of shows here every day and night of the week. And their following here at the station as a whole is increasing all the time. There are 3 separate channels here. They're on continuously, and they satisfy just about anyone's taste. A lot of music gets played here. A lot of music that you might not be able to hear in other places gets played here. So my advice to everyone is to make sure you go to www.hamiltonradio.net and sign on so that you'll start to get regular updates of the programming that's happening. My guest in the studio tonight is a lady named Margie Blickerts, and she is the Director of Scholarship Programs at Foster and Adoptive Family Services. Now, the generally accepted thinking here is that foster youth can go to college for free, but it turns out that it's not quite that simple. Margie is an expert on this subject, and she's here to speak the truth. So be sure to tell your friends that interview is coming up in just a few minutes, and you're not going to want to miss it. Just want to remind everyone that we're on right here every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. with the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. We have some intelligent, caring people lined up as guests coming up. Next week, May 17th, we're going to meet Jamie Parker from the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen, and Jamie is going to talk to us about the plight of homeless people that interact with Task, the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen. On May 24th, we're going to have some actual young people, actual real young people. Can you imagine such a thing? Actual young people from, it's a local Trenton Youth Advisory Committee, and they're going to be right here in the studio. And when you listen to young people talk, as I had the pleasure of doing just yesterday, I found it to be tremendously enlightening, so I hope you'll be with us on the 24th. On May 31st, it's Joshua Meekins from an organization called Give Back. So be sure to tune in every week at 8 p.m. for our unfiltered look at the child welfare system. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what makes this program unique. If you care about our nation's youth, if you care about the child welfare system, this is where you come to hear the truth. And if you have specific questions, you can call in or write them to me either in the comments field on my Facebook page or directly to me at greg@ageoutangels.org. I answer every single question personally. As you can tell, youth are of paramount importance to me. But if you care enough to correspond with me directly, then you're certainly important to me as well. So I hope to hear from folks. I noticed that Jeff Anderson is already out there listening. Jeff, glad to have you aboard, and thanks for hitting that like button on Facebook. And feel free to call in tonight. The phone number is 609-807-2492. So before we begin with our first story tonight, I want you to take a moment, hit that share button on Facebook. We're set to begin a national recruitment drive to find mentors and partner organizations all over the country. So if you know anyone who might be interested in joining us, or if you know any youth who may be in need of our services, you're going to want to hit that share button, make sure that they are aware of us. I noticed that Scotty is out there listening. Hi, brother, how are you? And so please give those people a chance to hear this program, and tell them to look us up online at www.ageoutangels.org. Hey, May is National Foster Care Month. Did you know that? My guest knew that. And it's also a month when colleges graduate their seniors. If you talk to youth in unstable living conditions, many will tell you that they would like to go to college. So with that in mind, I thought it might be interesting on National Foster Care Month to look at some facts about the relationship between foster youth and our education system. And this information is from a 2014 report called Fostering Success in Education. It's a national fact sheet on the educational outcomes of children in foster care. I hope you're sitting down. At the time of this report, there were nearly 400,000 youth in foster care. Most people believe the number is closer to 440,000 at this point, driven mostly by the opioid epidemic, that increase. Approximately 250,000 of those 400,000 were school-aged children. 52% male, 48% female. During their first foster stay, this is in the stay before they get reunified, which happens within a year or two sometimes. That's the goal. So during their first foster stay, a youth experiences an average of 2.8 different living arrangements. Talking about a child here. Students in foster care are twice as likely to be absent from school than other students. More than half of students who enter the foster care system must change schools at the time that they enter. And more than a third of 17 and 18-year-olds in foster care have experienced 5 or more school changes during their academic life. 17, 18-year-olds in foster care are twice as likely to have an out-of-school suspension and 3 times more likely to be expelled than other students. The average, this kills me. The average reading level of a 17 to 8-year-old in foster care is 7th grade. I'll let that sink in for a second. I was at a meeting today at the Princeton Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I brought these facts with me. And the one that everybody lit on who saw this was the fact that we are graduating people from high school who read at a 7th grade level. That's a disgrace. Students in foster care are 2.5 to 3.5 times more likely to receive special education services. Only half of students in foster care complete high school by age 18. While 84% of 17 to 18-year-olds in foster care want to go to college, only 20% of students in foster care that graduate from high school actually attend college. And of that number, only 2 to 9% of youth in foster care attain a bachelor's degree, dramatically below the national average, which I think hovers around 30%. I'm looking at my guest now, who is agreeing with me. So I think that number's at about 30%, or at least we agree. So, all right, so do the math with me. 400,000 kids, 2 to 9% are going to go on and get a bachelor's degree. So we're saying that out of 400,000 kids, maybe 10 to 12,000 will actually graduate college with a bachelor's degree. It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. But I want to temper it for a second. because we've had guests on this show, especially the gentleman that we had from the Mercer County Technical Schools, who contend that we shouldn't necessarily push youth inappropriately towards college if they would be better off in a technical career where they could make a good living. There are technical careers that you can make a good living at, and that concept has merit, and I want to make sure that their point of view is accounted for in this. However, let it be said that even in trades, even the military doesn't want uneducated people. Many trades that offer real money require some expertise, and if a youth reads on a 7th grade level and is similarly deficient in math, they simply won't qualify for the higher paying trades. Now I'm going to talk more about this in my closing remarks tonight, because there is another point to be made that needs to be brought to light that sort of complements this but takes it off into a different direction. So be sure and stay with me for the whole hour tonight, and we'll talk more about this on the other side. Meanwhile, did you know that there is actually a national PTA, a parent-teachers organization? I had no idea. But it's an organization that provides resource materials for local PTAs. So if you're interested in learning ways your local PTA can better support foster children, especially during Foster Care Awareness Month, go to www.pta.org. Easy to remember, pta.org. And they have a whole ton of information there specifically about parenting foster children and working with foster children. And it's a good website. The official color of Foster Care Awareness Month is blue. I hope my blue shirt is coming through for those of you who are catching the live video stream. So it just made me think, if you have blue eyes, you're like already with the program. But wear blue as much as you can in honor of National Foster Care Month. The Children's Bureau, together with its information service called the Child Welfare Information Gateway, and these are government websites, along with the National Foster Care Parent Association, are pleased to announce the launch of the 2018 National Foster Care Month website. They have a website just for National Foster Care Month. This year's theme is It's All Relative, supporting kinship connections. Oh, there is such a strong drive right now for kinship placements and kinship adoptions, because with the extra 40,000 kids, the overburdened child welfare system, is just busting at the seams right now, and they can't get enough parents in the foster care system. So kinship is really, really on everyone's mind. This website provides resources for supporting permanence through reunification, kinship care, guardianship, and adoption, including resources specifically geared toward foster parents. So that is the Children's Bureau, together with its information service, the Child Welfare Information Gateway, and the National Foster Parents Association. And the website is the National Foster Care Month website. I wonder if anyone saw the article in Newsweek last week by a lady named Lupe Tovar. And it's about the state of Oklahoma, and it basically talks about a law that the Oklahoma legislature passed, both the House and the Senate. It's Senate Bill 1140, and it's now awaiting to be signed into law by Governor Mary Fallin. And everyone's hope is that she will veto this bill, because it is just so sick. And basically what it does is it permits discrimination. It can keep like a gay couple, gay men, gay women couple from adopting a foster child if the agency that would be facilitating the adoption has a religious belief that goes against that. So there's two issues here. The first is, everybody believes in freedom of religion. I don't know, even atheists believe that people should be free to believe what they want to believe. No one doesn't think that. But at the same time, when those beliefs enter in a way that does actual harm to children and would keep a child from being adopted, then we're hoping that Mary Fallin, who is a pretty strange governor, if you know anything about Mary Fallin and the Oklahoma laws right now, we're hoping that she will veto that bill. And Lupe is in a particularly strong position to write that because she was adopted as an adult. She aged out of the system, and she was actually adopted as an adult by two gay males, and has a wonderful relationship, and the love that she had looked for her whole life, she has found in this. And this bill might keep that from happening. It's tremendously unfair. California, CASA, writes, although the provision of health care for foster children is mandated, many fail to receive even basic health care services. We must ensure that foster children continue to maintain their eligibility and enrollment status as they make their way through the system. And that's a lot what Age Out Angels does, is try to make sure that people are up to date on their paperwork. Call me in tonight, 609-807-2492. You can also write comments and questions in my Facebook page. I hope you take a second to let me know you're out there. We're going to take a short break, hit that share button, and tell your friends we're here. And we'll be back in a minute with my guest, Margie Blickars. Come on in. And we are back. Welcome back. Sitting next to me is Margie Blickars. She is the Director of Scholarship Programs from Foster and Adoptive Family Services. Now, Foster and Adoptive Family Services, I looked it up for an actual date, and it seems like they've been around since 1974. Yep. I knew that they were actually one of the sort of, we call them the original group of agencies that started up in Trenton when there was basically nothing, for like there were orphanages,
like a grassroots,
you know, back then, and so this is an organization been around for 40-some years. And how long have you been with this group?
I've been with FAFS since March of 2015.
Okay.
So 2.5 years.
Okay, and we use the word FAFS.
We are, yeah.
Right,
so
FAFS,
yes.
Foster and Adoptive Family Services.
Yes.
But I just want to make sure our listeners understand. FAFS is the name of the company, right? The organization.
Yep.
But don't let that confuse you, because later we're going to talk about the FAFSA.
We are.
Which has nothing to do exactly with the organization.
No, we work with it a lot, but no.
FAFSA is that form that...
Yeah, it just opens the gateway to all federal and state grants. So
right.
Yeah, the free application for federal student aid. Anybody who went to school for college, post-secondary education, they know the FAFSA.
It's the gateway to the money.
It is. It's a very long form. It's a great form, but it's a lot. It's usually to sit down and take a lot of time to take care of the FAFSA.
Absolutely. I was actually trained on it by the United Way.
Okay.
They send out a barrage of people to help.
Yeah, and there's so
youngsters.
many resources now because there's this perception of it, but it's a lot easier now, but still obviously overwhelming. It's asking about financial things and, you know, a lot of information that most adolescents may not know, and they'll ask their parents, which, you know, we'll get into later with this population.
Absolutely. But enough about me. Let's talk about you.
Oh, sure.
How did you get involved in this? What was the start of the seed of you working with children or young people?
Yeah, I've always had a drive for working with the high school, college age. Even when I was in high school, I always believed in an extracurricular component with education. And then specifically when I was an RA when I was in college, and I had a resident on my floor who was homeless and had some time in care. And, you know, I just remember watching her move in. I remember times throughout the semester she'd be having a really difficult time, and instead of being able to call her parents, she would come talk to me, which was fine. But it was hard, you know.
Was she in the foster care system?
At that point, she was closed out. I think she signed herself out when she was 18. But she she was homeless. She didn't have anywhere to go during the breaks. We would talk about it when she moved in. She moved in with probably a backpack, whereas some people come in with 2 cars full. So it was hard to see that, especially when it came to care package season and things like that. And it always stuck with me. And then I majored in sociology, did a concentration in social work, and then I had my master's in counselor education, more so with student affairs, so I could work in a college setting. And then there was a position open at FAFSA, which kind of was a perfect molding of the two. It was social services with college focus and working with adolescents who were in care. And since then, I was the education specialist. Now that I'm the director, and I get to work with the same program. It's our NJFC Scholars Program, which we'll talk about later.
So it's sort of those things sort of combined all the things that you like.
It did.
So when you were earning your master's in social work, you didn't have visions of being out in the field and yanking children from.
No, well, that was never really my overall goal. But my overall was working on college campuses and helping students transition during their first year. That was always what I wanted to do. And then when I found this position, I saw it was a particular population that just needed more access and support. And then obviously the people that I work with were amazing. It was people who you could tell were in it for the right reasons and they wanted to help.
Yeah, we at Age Out Angels, we meet the kids who are like, in crisis. They just realize that school, the break is coming, and they have nowhere to live. And sometimes, and we'll talk about this more in depth later, sometimes they're in the group of circumstances where they'll fall through the cracks of the law, right? And when they fall through the cracks of the law, then suddenly all of the programs that were designed to help them can't. Or they simply can't.
Even on a college campus, people won't know that they need help unless they self-advocate or unless they say it. And a lot of the times, you're not going to openly disclose that unless it's somebody that you feel really comfortable with.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Is like I can't really go out and target foster youth or vulnerable youth because technically, when you get right down to it, no matter how much we want to help them. It's none of our business.
And there's not a report, there's not something that you can find with this population, and it's unfortunate because you want to be there to help them, but at the same time, it's their right to tell their story.
Absolutely.
And whether or not they choose to share that with you.
So let's take a step back and take a kind of an umbrella look at. I'm sorry, you okay?
No, I looked and I said, oh, it's not on for me.
Okay. And so let's sort of take an overview look at. Foster and Adoptive Family Services, FAFS.
Yes.
It's a big organization.
It is. It's getting bigger. I mean, it's a big organization in that we do a lot, but there's only in total about 28 to 30 of us. So it's a small amount of people doing a lot of work, but a lot of good work.
And it's broken into 4 major departments, if I understand correctly.
It is, yeah. So we have the scholarship department, which is my department that I work in, and we will talk about that later. And then we have our communication and development department, ComDev for short, our support department, as well as our training department. And so together we make up our agency. And then, each department made up of very dedicated individuals, and we're all doing different things mostly. Scholarship department, we focus specifically on the adolescents, on youth, whereas the other three departments work with resource parents or foster parents, as well as private programs for youth that are in care.
So you have this sort of communication development, and they do website.
Yep, external communications, private programs. They do newsletters, blogs such as this to talk about foster care, talk about awareness, and then we have our Dreamers and Believers program. We have our Fostering Wishes program, a We Heart Birthdays program. So really, people could just go on and donate, get a birthday gift for somebody that's in care, or sponsor, ballet classes, things that promote that idea of enriching things for them to do.
So even though that group is like less direct with parents or youth, they're still providing sort of a source that gets through.
A lot of active services, and then they're broadcasting it.
Right. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the 2 groups who work directly with the resource parents.
Okay.
Right. You have support group. And tell me what they do.
So their name says it all, but ultimately the support department, we have family advocates. So essentially it's staff members who are there who will work with resource parents. They'll call FAFS and they'll say, I'm having this particular issue. Can someone help me? I'm looking for resources in a particular county. What can I do in terms of, again, support and advocacy? They do recreation events in the summer. They're going to be going to Jenkinson's for adolescents to go to, resource parents to go to, again, for families to go to have fun. They do holiday parties throughout the year. It's a lot of togetherness, a lot of, again, getting the families together in an environment where they're comfortable, where they're safe, and then just giving them resources and access to those things that other people may not be aware of.
And before we go on, I just want to say thanks. Apparently, we're loved by Gene and liked by Jason, Lynn, Rachel, and Jeff. Thank you all so very much for listening tonight. Are any of those your friends?
I know. So I know a Lynn. Our director of communication development's Lynn. So that might be her. And then I do know a Rachel. So if it's them, thanks. I can look.
You bet.
This is my dream to be on the radio. So they're liking my dream right now.
Oh, I'm so glad you made a wish.
Yeah.
You made a wish. Okay, but what I want to get to is the training department, because I just think this is so wonderfully valuable.
Yep. And they know about you. I've already reached out to our director about training, but and training, again, we're very direct. Our names say it all. But they provide trainings for the resource parents throughout the state of New Jersey to keep their licenses active. So it's online trainings, it's webinars, it's home correspondence courses, and the topics range. It's hundreds of topics about Youth Thrive curriculum, Nurtured Heart, about working with an adolescent in care, how to work with CPMP, mental health issues, psychological trauma. It's a wonderful department, and again, they're the ones that are making sure that everybody is up to top with their license.
Yes, at a meeting, at an event of FAFS, that was where I first, I had heard about Nurtured Heart.
Yes.
I heard about it, but that was where I got my first real 1 hour long exposure, and I think it's really more like a 6 hour.
It is. It's a very expansive training, and we have, and again, in our training department, as well as our manager for our support department, they're certified to train on this topic. So, and it's something that we would love to bring to the resource parents and to everybody. We've experienced the training because we work directly with adolescents, and it really gives you. It's things that you may already do, but it gives you a spin in the way to be affirming and to advocate, and just that we do it all the time in terms of the affirmations at work. We practice what we preach.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are not aware of the Nurtured Heart, I think you should look it up. I think you should go online and just Google the Nurtured Heart. But I will tell you that in the 10-second version of understanding the Nurtured Heart, what you're basically doing is in your interactions with all people, not just children.
Correct, everyone.
But in your interactions with all people, you are just looking for something good.
Yep, it's enabling and promoting the positive behaviors versus focusing on the negative.
And not giving any energy at all.
That's exactly.
Right?
That's perfect. Yeah.
Oh, I listened.
I was just listened very well.
I listened. I thought it was great.
No, it is.
I had at that time. I had to leave the session about 10 minutes early, and you know how awkward it is to get up in a room full of people and leave. Yeah. But I had to get back to the two interns that I had working. Right. Working at my booth at that event. And I stood up, and the lady who was running the class looked at me as if to say, why are you leaving? And I just said, I have to get back to my two interns and find out what they're doing right. Not what they're doing wrong.
And I'm sure she appreciated that.
What they're doing right. Yeah. She understood. She knew.
I know who's doing the training. I can imagine her looking, but also acknowledging you need to go.
Immediately, she knew I got it.
Right. Yeah.
But now I'm really sort of dying to get the next 5 hours of training, because what I think, what you have to do with this sort of thing is not only understand it and get it in your head, but do some role playing.
Absolutely.
Really start to practice it and make it your own. So do you have to learn? I mean, is that something that you do voluntarily or involuntarily?
No, we had trainings, and then we actually at our office we have an affirmations board. The training department sends out reminders, and they do it subtly too. One day I was talking to somebody in the office, and I was just saying, I really appreciated you, coming and talk to me about this. And then a training staff member walked by, and then she came back to me later and she goes, Margie, I heard what you did, and that was the Nurtured Heart approach. They're very, very quick to recognize it, and then that promotes, it's positive reinforcement. It promotes the behavior.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Makes people smile.
It does. And we try to do that as often as we can at FAFS. I think whether it's our programs, make everybody's day a little bit better.
So you had this event that you had.
Yes.
which was called
It's a Passport to Education event.
That's right, Passport to Education.
Yeah, it was our first event ever like that.
And it sort of paves the way for what we're going to talk about in the next segment. But you had what, maybe 15, 20 organizations like mine?
In terms of vendors, we had 24 in total
24,
that were actually tabling, and then from participants, it was a range, close to 30 in terms of, and then we had obviously adolescents there. We had CP&P workers, so we had state involvement, we had DCF staff members there.
Do you have an idea of the total?
In total,
population there?
It was close to around 100 we had in total. So we wanted more youth there, but things come up. But in total, we had about 20, 25 adolescents.
That's a whole other topic. But we hit on it a second ago when we said, that they have to come to us. I can't go.
Right.
I can't go to them.
Yeah.
And here you're an organization that has been around for 40 years or more. You're known. You're a known commodity. The good work that you do is known. It really is. And I'm not just trying the nurtured heart approach. This is known.
No.
But still, it is so difficult. And I've been in events like that where, I've had people from shelters and stuff go out and just try to pull kids,
well,
and
the
to come in.
majority of the adolescents that were there, they were driven there by their workers.
Absolutely.
They have no other way of getting there.
Absolutely. And so we're going to take a short break. Can we cue the music, ladies and gentlemen? And take a short break, and we're going to come back with Margie Blickers. And we're going to talk about how you get into college. Don't go away. And we are back with Margie Blickers. We'll get to Margie in just a second. I just want to thank all of the people who made donations to Age Out Angels and to Foster and Adoptive Family Services this week. Remember, every time you purchase something from Amazon, you could be making a donation to Age Out Angels without spending a penny more. You heard right. It doesn't have to cost you a penny. When you go to Amazon, there's a pop-up that offers you a chance to go to Amazon Smile. And if you make your purchase through Amazon Smile, you can designate Age Out Angels as your donation organization. And without it costing you more, a portion of your purchase will go to help children who need it the most. And if you want to friend me on Facebook, I can send you a link that will take you directly there and save you a few clicks. Back with Margie Blickers, your specialty is helping people navigate the murky waters that lead to money to go to college. And I have to say that I was as naive as everyone else. I thought you're in foster care, you go to school for free. You just show up, and they go, oh, you're in foster care, come on in.
No.
Doesn't work that way,
no,
huh?
And I easily have this conversation a few times a week, and it's always a heartbreaking conversation because you're talking to somebody, it's either a parent or the adolescents themselves who literally on the phone I can just hear all the energy leave, and they say, what do you mean I can't go for free? I was told I could go for free, and and maybe with a combination of grants and scholarships and things, maybe your tuition could be covered, but just because you've been in care, it's not an automatic going to college for free card, and I think that's a perception that's out there, and we definitely want to make sure that if anybody leaves with anything else today, unfortunately it's not the case. There is the grants, scholarships, and all these other things that come into it that they will need in order to support a post-secondary education. And we know that it's not cheap to go to college. Whether it's in-state, out-of-state, public, private, community college, even, everything. The price of education is rising because education is so important. And it's just important that everybody knows that.
Turns out Lynn actually is your friend.
Oh, yeah.
She just thanked you for the ComDev shout out.
If we're a team, teamwork makes the dream work. That's what we say.
That's right. And so now, basically, a foster youth has to do the very same thing to start with that any young person has to do if they want to try to get money for college.
Complete the FAFSA.
Right?
Yep.
Complete the FAFSA. Now, the FAFSA is about 3,412 pages long.
It's a little bit better, maybe 3,400
Uh-huh.
now. No, it has gotten better, but if you're in care and you're an independent student,
Yes.
we'll talk about dependency. So it's question 53 on the FAFSA. I see it all the time, and it asks, at any point in time after the age of 13, were you a ward of the court? And so if you are, and you hit yes to that, that automatically takes you away from 30 questions. You do not have to answer them because it's all parent information.
There's the key.
Yeah, it's
If
after
you were a ward of
13.
the court after the age of
Yes.
13. So if you're out there and you're fostering and you're thinking about adopting, the best advice is to wait until that child is 13 years and 1 day.
I was going to say, because it could be 1 day in care, it could be 2 months, 5 years, 7 years, as long as there's that 1 day after the age of 13, the state can provide a ward of the court letter that verifies that independent status, which means you are only putting your own financial information on the FAFSA. You're not putting parent information, which dependent students do. That's why, again, you have your parents involved. For independent students, you put that there, you bring the necessary documentation, a ward of the court letter, sometimes it's a worksheet, that depends on, what's necessary, and then your own financial information. So that's key, and because independent, it makes you eligible for the max amount of aid.
I just wonder how many kids in the foster system who really don't have that much in the way of support would make it through questions 1 to 52 to even get to question 53.
And it's difficult because sometimes they don't know their social security number. Sometimes they don't have a permanent address and they ask for an address. And the FAFSA, as well as our state aid, has gotten much better. They do emails now, but they ask for that information. So automatically you're getting overwhelmed because if you don't know those 2 basic things, automatically you can't go past page 1.
Yeah, it's computerized,
Yes.
and it won't let you proceed
Right.
beyond that.
Yes,
I know a young lady whose caregiver won't let her have her social security number, and what we teach at Age Out Angels is you never walk around with your security card.
Right, absolutely.
You memorize your number, and if anyone ever asks you for it, you say automatic no, and then you ask later, should I have given that, because there's some situations where you have to and some where you
just
don't.
want to make sure you're protecting yourself. Absolutely.
So it sort of makes sense to me that they wouldn't
Right, absolutely.
have their social security number. It'd be too easy.
It would be, and it's just, whether it's reaching out to the caseworker or their resource parent, or if they have it on them, it's just so much information they're being asked and they've never been asked before. Or the amount of time we've had somebody call and say, oh, well, I paid my $100 fee for the FAFSA, and I say, it's the free application for federal student aid. What did you pay? And then we were trying to figure out where do they give their money to, because that's part of the name. So we try to do a lot of education as well on scams that are unfortunately out there, and then directing them where they need to go to complete that information.
So FAFSA actually stands for free
Application for Federal Student Aid.
Free application for federal student
So
aid.
that would be the Pell Grant, supplemental grants, things like that. But then once you complete your FAFSA, it'll direct you to state-based questions.
There's another section.
It's a quick link at the very end. It's literally the
Okay.
confirmation page, and then it says click here for your state-based questions. So for New Jersey, there's literally 5 questions, and it just asks, again, it's more income information, but if you're an independent, you're putting your own financial information down. And then once you submit it, then you're eligible for additional aid, such as our tuition aid grant. That's the biggest one.
Okay, so if you get to question 53, and it turns out that you are dependent, but in that weird unstable dependent sort of way where the people who you need to get these questions answered are not going to make
Not
themselves
providing
or their information available to you. Is there anything you can do at that point?
Typically, we're going to tell them to submit it as a dependent, especially if they're being claimed on taxes. That's something else as well. But then we'll talk about a dependency override, because if there could be a letter, whether it's from a transitional living program, whether it's from a guidance counselor, somebody on some type of letterhead that can provide verification that you are not dependent, because whatever the situation may be, then you would submit that to the necessary either financial aid office, to HESA, our Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, and then they could do a dependency override.
You know all the acronyms,
There are
don't you?
so many. As I'm saying it, I have to say the acronyms. It's an alphabet soup of fun.
Yeah. It's I got to tell you, I have had some success calling uncooperative um, um, caregivers and parents. I have had some success just calling them up and just saying, "Hey, come on," you know. If I catch them when they're sober, right? I just come on, just answer these 10 questions for me, or do this, and let's sort of get this over with.
Right.
How big is that section?
For the it's that 30 to 40 questions,
30 to 40
and that's all again.
questions,
It's parental information, so it's year of graduation, how many did they attain their degree, and then it's financial information,
Right.
which is the hardest part because now you're talking about tax transcripts, and then you're connecting them with the IRS data retrieval tool, another acronym. So it's a lot of moving pieces that, as an adult, is overwhelming, and if you're an adolescent doing this by yourself, it's terrifying.
I'm sure it'd be impossible for an adolescent. I mean, I'd use finesse, do it in chunks,
Right.
hit them with the 10 easiest questions, and then say, "Hey, I got to call you tomorrow,
Right.
okay?" And see if we can.
You could, I mean, and that's a good way to do it. But
Yeah.
then sometimes when you have them there, you just like, let's just do the whole thing. Let's just make sure we get it done, because some aid as well is first come first serve. So you want to make sure you get the aid
Get it
in
in
as soon as possible.
Yeah. I guess you got to feel the moment, huh?
You gotta seize the opportunity.
Okay, so now, what is it exactly? Let's assume that a child is independent.
Okay.
Okay, was in foster care for at least one day after the age of 13. Okay. If you weren't, wait a minute. If you weren't in foster care, then you're dependent.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So there's no middle ground. Like you
there's-
said, there's an override possibility.
Right, there is. And there's other
Right.
ways to be independent. There's, being a veteran, being married. But for our population, we focus on that war of the court piece. But let's say if somebody's adopted from the state, from child protection permanency before the age of 13, then they would be dependent because they would have the parent information to put in.
And for those of you around the country, we call it child protection and permanency.
Yes.
Or the CPNP.
CPNP, yep.
CPNP. You call it DIFUS or Division of Youth and Families or whatever.
DCF.
But
that's a big one too.
See, what happens is every time something goes wrong, they change the acronym, and that makes it all fresh again.
Yeah.
you know. So we're DCPNP. All right. So, what do you get? Let's say you qualify.
That's a magic question.
What I get?
So you can get the max amount of Pell. So if you're talking this year, the maximum Pell was $5,920. The Pell Grant.
What does it stand for? What's Pell?
Oh, isn't that?
Who's
No, it's
Pell?
just it's
Is
in that.
Mr. Pell?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Maybe
Okay.
I should know that. But so they could get $5,920 right there, and then you can get a supplemental grant. For this year, it was $4,000. So right now we're at $9,000.
Well, hang on.
I know.
Hang on.
Yep.
To go to a state school,
Okay, a state New Jersey.
$30,000 a year, including room and board.
I say including room and board, yes.
Yeah.
So right now, in terms of aid, we're at 9,000.
We're at 9. We're 21 short.
We're 21 short. You could possibly get a tuition aid grant. That's our state grant, and that ranges. I think the highest one I saw this year is about 6,000. So now we're at 15.
Okay.
And then there's
halfway. We're halfway there.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
But we're losing steam.
I know we are, because now it comes out to loans.
Oh
And
no.
Yeah,
we don't want loans.
So okay, maybe we'll do a couple of private scholarships.
Let me ask you
that.
something. Yes, if that person gets a private scholarship, let's say the Elks give them $2,000.
Yep.
Will that count against their Pell Grant
No,
and their state?
no, that won't.
Okay.
That won't. Those scholarships are private, and it'll just be an assistance on
But
top.
if the school gives grant money, it could count against that, right?
It really depends. It doesn't, because typically the federal grants and the state grants are all awarded first, and then you'll come in and do school-based aid. But if it's a grant, it'll just be added on. So
Okay.
they could be getting a lot, because again, some of our state schools there's one in particular, but that has bigger grants that could range between 2,000 and 10,000.
Okay.
So depending on it, but some of them are merit-based. They're not just all needs-based.
Mm-hmm. And so we got it up to about 15, and
You're up to
then you
15.
said the L word.
And then I said loans. I did.
Yeah.
Again, there could be possible scholarships in there, and then there's loans, which you have subsidized, unsubsidized, you have private, and again, you want subsidized, because that one at least you don't have to worry about interest until after you graduate, but it's a loan. And then we have to have conversations with the students. Here's what a loan is. Here's what interest is.
Well, let me ask you, because the general thought is that a loan for college is not dischargeable in a bankruptcy.
Okay.
Now, is that the kind of loan that you're talking about?
We're talking about loans that really it's just the education about the loans, because we have students that take out all types of loans.
Yeah.
The private, the public, the subsidized, the unsubsidized. Because again, you want the one that the Department of Ed's going to be paying the interest on for you until you graduate.
That's what subsidized means.
Yes, that's a subsidized.
So there's loan money coming to you. The loan company, who's the lender, is collecting interest. But when it's subsidized, they're not collecting that interest from
right.
you.
The interest is being paid by the Department of Ed. So they're taking on that for you. So again, there's all these different, I say, tiers in terms of aid. And then again, we have the private scholarships. Then we have our scholarship program. But the way that we work, we come in after all other grants and aid comes in as well. But the best guess you're looking at, so in this example that we have, about you're attending $30,000. Right now we're up to 22, maybe.
Okay.
And then what do you do with the remaining 8,000?
Remaining 8, yeah.
So that's where there's a conversation of maybe you take a lower meal plan. Maybe you don't live on campus, but then you look at rents and then food and laundry, utilities. It's all these conversations that sometimes nobody's having with the adolescents, or when they're having with them, it may be too late.
Right.
You know, or you want that typical college experience and you want to live on campus. You want to do things. Then it's figuring out how do you pay for it.
And why shouldn't you?
Right.
I always,
Absolutely.
I always, it just blows my mind that like lots of times when people will give us money, there's certain concrete things that they want to see in return for that money, and I totally understand that.
Right.
But shouldn't there be a little bit of money for kids to have what we call enrichment?
Right.
Why can't they go to a theater? Why can't they?
Right, and that's what our private programs, like I mentioned with ComDev earlier, try to do, and then through our program, we try to provide those educational supports, because tuition and fees, room and board, yes, they're very important. They get you in the door, but then afterwards, how about your books? How about transportation if you're a commuter? How about food stipends? How about a laptop to do your online seminar? And those are things that some of our students don't have that we'll move forward and pay for with the NJFC Scholars Program.
Right, and we're finding some of that happening right now. I'm getting a sign that says thought college was free. Who thought college was free? We thought college was free for foster kids. Yeah, but it turns out it just doesn't work that way. You have to go through the process. When you go through the process, you're going to find out that about half of it is easy to get. Well, relatively easy to get with an advocate.
Right. If you attend a community college, your tuition
fees
could absolutely be taken care of, and then if you get a credit from your grant, then that can move forward. But then again, what's your living expenses look like?
Right.
So
and you at a community college, and you could do great. I mean, they actually have 4-year programs now.
And New Jersey has some of the best community colleges.
In community colleges, yeah. But you are never going to get that dorm living on campus. I call it the halfway house between your parents' home and the real world, right?
That's a good example. Good analogy.
But it's 4 years of getting used to that sort of transition. You are not going to have that.
You wouldn't have. Yeah, you're not going to have that. I guess the dream, or however they show it in the media, that's not. It won't be the reality.
Yeah, that won't be the reality. But your alternative there is like you can have that life, but you're going to have to pay for it on the back end, because you are going to have to either get loans.
Right, or you're going to have to work full-time while attending school full-time, or work part-time, and then it's figuring out, and you're balancing classes, and you're balancing work, and then, again, if you have food insecurity, if you have housing insecurity, you're worrying about all of that on top of finals. And can you?
So I think the moral of the story is do so well in high school that you can get scholarships. You can get schools who want you to go there.
Right, and I was like, you can call us early, maybe in your sophomore year, and we'll say, here's all these scholarship databases. Here's all these things. Here are deadlines for the FAFSA. Because if you're applying for the FAFSA now in May for this upcoming fall, it's not good.
You're already late.
You're already late.
When should you have applied for the upcoming fall?
It opens October 1st. So for this fall 2018 academic year, October 1st, 2017, it opens, and you should have started applying then.
So it's like almost a year. It's
almost
11 months. 11 months prior to the start of a semester that you need to get that form filled out and out the door. Wow, absolutely amazing. you've become quite an expert in this. I know there's all kinds of little scholarships too, like
Yes.
if your parents were in law enforcement, I think
Oh,
is there
there's scholarships for
military,
everything.
yeah.
I found one once for a student who I felt bad asking. I was like, "Do you like chocolate?" He goes, "Yeah, why?" I was like, "There is a scholarship out there for people who like chocolate."
There is.
Everything. Yeah, if you just find it.
Oh, at last I can go to
You know what I
college.
mean? It's amazing what you can find, and that's things that we try to highlight as well. So if someone calls and they may or may not be eligible for our program, it's near the end of the year, we'll say, we're going to send you this 27-page financial aid resource list that explains everything. And here's databases, here's scholarships by topic. We try to, if we cannot help them or if we may not be eligible for our programs, we're still going to do our best to make sure that they get some type of information to help them go to school, because everybody should have access to education.
Okay, now, do you have somebody then who then sits down with them and fills out all these forms and makes sure
We can.
that they do that? Because we can do that too.
Right.
If you need support
Mhm.
in that regard, all
Absolutely.
you have to do is give me a call.
So our entire department that works with NJFC in general. There's 5 of us. My entire scholarship department. There's 11 because we have 2 major programs. One of them's in academic coaching, if you're eligible in the foster care system, and then there's our outreach component with NJFC scholars. And again, we'll have staff go, but this year we had 413 students in the program, and there's 5 of us.
Right.
So the ratio is a little.
That's
little
exactly
da- a
what I'm
little
talking
daunting.
about. Yes.
So if they call and we can make it work, we absolutely will. But I mean, again, it's all access to information, and it's all just having somebody one-on-one there for them to talk to, ask questions to, and get the information they need.
Margie Blickers from Foster and Adoptive Family Services. Such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you again.
You have to come back.
I'll come back.
Okay, you have to come back soon, and sort of tell us how things are going. I mean, you must
Yeah.
know how things end sometimes, right? So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. No, I happy to be back, and honestly, we can keep talking about this for hours.
Great.
So.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I do have some final words, and I promised you all I would talk more about the education system, and you're going to find this very interesting. Margie, thank you so much.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
And we are back. I promised you at the beginning of the show that I'd talk a little more about education, and I think you get the point that foster youth get a bad deal when it comes to education. But let's take a moment and look at education from a slightly different vantage point. And I want you to ask the question as I talk about these next few things. Is this really the school's problem to solve? I was at a meeting the other day where the vice principal of a high school explained to our group that youth don't come to school when the change to and from daylight savings time causes them to walk to school in the dark, because in the urban setting that their school serves, it is simply not safe to walk outside of your neighborhood in the dark. It's okay to walk outside in your neighborhood, but not to cross over into other neighborhoods in the dark. And my question to you out there tonight is this really something that's the school's problem? And if you'd like to write to me on Facebook and tell me your answer to that, I'd love to hear it. Kim is out there listening to the show tonight, and Kim says, FAFS, a great organization doing exemplary work on behalf of children and families. Kim, I'm sure the people at FAFS thank you for those kind words. So I met with a high school student, and I asked if I could have a look at her math book. And she said to me, we don't have math books. And even when they do have books, they aren't allowed to bring them home. They learn from worksheets. Now, apparently, school doesn't have enough money for books, and if they left the books out of the school, there's a good chance they wouldn't come back. My question to you is this really the school's fault? And let's go on. Some schools, in fact more every day, have metal detectors. Everyone has to pass through the metal detector in order to keep weapons out of the school. Not to mention the idea that teachers should be armed with guns so they can do double duty as both teachers and active shooter responders. Question to you, is this really the job of the school. Let's go on. Some schools provide breakfast and lunch. So a low-income student may qualify for those meals, but frequently that breakfast or lunch or both is the only meal they will get in the day. Is giving this child the only meal that they get in the day, is that really the job of our school? Write to me and tell me what you think. Now, you can argue that some of these points might be best taken care of by schools. Certainly a school has a cafeteria. What's the big deal? Serve a breakfast, serve a lunch, as long as the funding is there. But what's hard to make an argument against is that every one of these things that I just said to you is a distraction from the prime directive of schools, which is simply to teach. People become teachers because they want to teach. They want to have that relationship with students, that mentor relationship with students. That's why they become teachers, not to learn how to fire a Glock and to run towards bullets when they're being shot. Now, I'm not trying to pretend that if we remove these distractions, schools would instantly become perfect. But schools, and also for that matter police, and we'll talk about that another time, have basically become a dumping ground for all the stuff in life that others won't do and should be doing. So maybe, just maybe, if we let teachers teach, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on the subject, so feel free to write me on Facebook directly, or directly to my email at greg@ageoutangels.org. Less than 3% of children who grow up in foster care graduate from a four-year college. A lady named Camelia Pritchard of Canton, Ohio, is one who beat the odds. The odds that Camelia Pritchard would go to college and graduate plummeted even before she entered kindergarten. At age 2, Pritchard was placed in the county foster care system after her mother stopped taking her medication for schizophrenia and her neighbors suspected abuse and neglect. Over the next several years, Pritchard moved from one foster home to another. With each move, Pritchard became angrier, more rebellious, and soon became entangled with the youth criminal justice system. She ran away at the beginning of her freshman year to avoid facing her probation officer when she missed a curfew. I started to do everything I could do to survive, Pritchard recalled. I got more involved with marijuana and alcohol and with prostitution, dancing, all that. There were nights early on that I slept in parks or was up walking the streets all night because I didn't have anywhere to go. Pritchard turned herself in after contracting mononucleosis and needing hospital care, only to run away 2 more times before her caseworker located her. Pritchard was 16 at the time and pregnant. That changed my whole life, Pritchard said. I'll never let my kids go through anything I've ever been through. So after I had the first one, I was like, I have to get myself together. This is after she had the first one. She said, I have to get myself together. The county social service agency placed Pritchard with Tina Freeman, a foster care mother in Jackson Township, who enrolled her at Jackson High School. She started as a junior, but had to do her freshman and sophomore years over. And what happened? What she did is something that a lot of foster kids do, at least ones who are lucky, which is take all the horrors of their lives and just bury themselves in their books. And that's what she had to do, to pull out. And it's very hard to do. But I've heard that story before, and it's a beautiful story. She found mentors along the way, and well, she's going to start as a social worker, and you hear that a lot also. Social work is the behavior that's modeled for people who are in foster care. They know what a social worker is. They know what a judge is. You know, they know what those professions are. And we wish her the very, very best. She's going to begin her licensure examination and start paying off her student loans and then go for her master's, which is a beautiful thing. One final thought. This is from a website called Mommyhood Striving for Sanity. You ever heard of that one? Mommyhood Striving for Sanity. And it's an open letter to any woman who adopted. And it says, Dear adoptive mama, hello, sweet woman. I wanted to take a moment and talk to you one-on-one. I needed to reach out to you because, well, I've been in your shoes. I, too, have a heart that breaks for every single child in need of a family. the abused, the neglected, the mentally ill, the physically disabled, the ones in the foster system, the drug addicted, the inconvenient, and the unwanted. And yes, my heart breaks for the ones with strong birth mamas, the ones that say, I need to give my child away for my child. She deserves more. God bless those mamas. They do what is courageous and what requires more strength than anyone could ever possibly imagine. I too have thought that by taking in those precious children, I would find my life's happiness. I thought that I would find the contentment that was missing when I was told I wouldn't have children of my own. I believe that by taking in another woman's child, my life's purpose would be complete and I would finally find happiness. And yet, my friend, adoption did not make me happy. You see, I fell into those same rose-colored worldview that many other mamas had fallen prey to. That vision of rescuing a child and loving them into wholeness. The idea that paperwork, finances, and legalities would all work themselves out in the end. I assumed I was capable of handling anything that God gave me. I would address each challenge with a smile, and my children would rise up and call me blessed. And the letter goes on to say that it does not work that way. You don't get into this business. You don't start adopting children and being foster parents and stuff like that because it makes you feel better. That's not what happens. You don't get rewards. What you get are things that are sentences thrown back at you like, you're not my real mom. Did you buy me? Would you give me back? That's what you get. That's like the reality. And of course, it doesn't happen that way all the time. But what you have to know is that if you're going to get involved with children in foster care, you're doing it for them. You're not doing it for you. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another hour talking about the things that matter in our lives. I want to thank the people here at Hamilton Radio, my special guest, Margie Blickers, Director of Scholarship Programs at Foster and Adoptive Family Services. Join me next Thursday, May 17th at 8 p.m. My guest will be Jamie Parker from Trenton Area Soup Kitchen. So until then, let's make this week the best week ever. Good night.